All right, it's Ancy coming at you, and I want to share some thoughts with you, some observations that I have noted, um, both in my own personal life, in my own neighborhood, my own community, and for the fact that I have been doing outbound dials to the tune of about 2,000 outbound dials this calendar year, and having many, many, many direct conversations with people that I really, really enjoy. And it lets me see societal trends as a result. So, the societal trend that I want to talk about is the rise, the increase of the multi-generational family. So, I have in front of me in Google, I'm going to read the definition. Multi-generational households are defined as including two or more adult generations, with the adults mainly ages 25 and older, or a skipped generation, which consists of grandparents and their grandchildren younger than 25. All right, so that's the standing terminology, was pretty much what I thought it would be. So in that case, just personal, our family household is 5 adults and 1 child, 2.5 years old. So 5 adults and a 2.5-year-old. So he doesn't have any kids to play with. Anyways, that's that. Let me talk about my neighborhood. So I moved here 8 years ago from the state of Minnesota to the state of Arkansas. And I'm in a very, I'm not going to call it rural. Our village is actually 30,000 and growing very, very, very rapidly. But it's a retirement community. We live in the woods, essentially. And anyways, so I'll just give a little rundown a little bit in my neighborhood, of which is probably 20, 22, 25 houses at max, many multi-generational. So directly kitty corner to us, there's a wonderful couple in their 80s. And that's how we knew them when we moved here. Then lo and behold, their son, who had been living in Hong Kong for about 2 decades, who'd gotten married married a Hong Konger woman and had 4 children. That whole household moves in, 6 of them. And they were there for about 4 years as he was transitioning, and they were trying to, where are we going to live? How are we going to, transition out of mom and dad's house? So you've got a couple in their 80s with a son in his 40s with this big family, right? Then, hang on, in this household that started with 2 people in their, senior years, then along comes the daughter from California with her husband and child. That added on, so you got this family of 6, then you got a family of 3, now you're at 9, you get the parents who live there, you're at 11. And it's not a big house, there's 3 bedrooms. And I'm like, wow. And they handled it with grace, I gotta say. And it was, so that's that one, right? And the one with the 4 kids, they did transition 4 years later. The others are staying. She is a teacher, low wages, and her husband works at a motorcycle shop. And it's pretty much agreed they're never going to be able to get their own house. They're going to live there, take care of the parents as they age into their 90s, and take over the house. Right? Okay, that's just right across the street, kitty corner. Then I've got a gentleman just a nook and a crook over. We've got all these windy streets because we live in kind of a mountainous area, big hills. Anyways, he moved out of California, and there's a mass exodus of people moving out of California. So he moves in, he and his wife are retired, but lo and behold, a daughter moves in, divorced with her kids. I think it was 3 or 4 kids. And he's like a transition house. She was there for a few months, maybe a year. Then they got her transition out. Oh, now they got to bring in the next daughter from California. And he said, we're just transitioning our kids out of the state of California. And so they've got this kind of treadmill thing, which will stop, obviously. And they have a very, very big house that can accommodate this. And therein lies the rub. Therein lies the rub is we thought we were empty nesters. And we bought our home down here. We were going to go with the bigger house that maybe the lower level would be an Airbnb. And I was like, I do not want a mortgage. Let's just get something that works for us. Just the 2 of us. Just the 2 of us. Oh, come again. No, 5 adults, 1 child. Whew. Unexpected. Okay. So now let me edge out a little bit further. I'll get to my phone call people in just a minute. But the next one is, so I had a call with the dietitian. I had a hospital stay and I have to change my diet. And we do our little stuff there, and I explained about our household and 5 adults. She said, "You have 5 adults? I have 5 adults too." I'm like, "You do?" And she explains her whole household. She said, "We were empty nesters all of 1 year." I don't think it's 5 adults, it's actually 3 and 2 kids. So in her case, it's one adult daughter who owned a home in this village that I live in. The other daughter also owned a home with her husband and the 2 kids. Both of them had their homes, but could no longer afford the cost of maintaining the home. Now, this was a new twist I'd not heard before. And I'm like, wow. So they sold their homes and they moved in with mom and dad. And so this gal went from empty nester for all of 1 year, and she pretty much now considers it permanent. She has a very upbeat attitude. And I think it's this kind of resignation that housing has gone through the roof. And I think it is now being said, and I firmly believe this, typically in American history, each generation, the next one born, it's going to be better than what we had. Yes, we want it better for our kids. Well, not so with this next generation, even into let's see, my kids are Gen X. They're 40, 36, and 34. Millennials, they're millennials. Not so. It's just not so. So we have this first generation where we can't say, "Oh, my kids have it better than I had it." No, and it's getting worse, right? So it's economic. It's mostly economic. I forgot there's a gentleman in our neighborhood. They ended up raising their grandson all the way to adulthood. And the story is that the dad was basically incompetent. He was blind, that they had adopted this man, a boy at that time. And anyways, they raised him, and they're in their late 70s. This is very, very common. Now, let me share with you the phone call parts. And I hope I'm pulling you in relative to, this is just like a loud drumbeat to me. Now, granted, it's because it is me, but it's like, you just really take note of it. You probably don't even think of it at all if you're not in a multi-generational situation. So I've probably done about 2,000 outbound dials since the beginning of the year, and I've had many, 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 many conversations just today. Multi-generational, mom and dad who were in a kind of a senior adult high-rise kind of a thing, got booted out, the building got bought, and they ended up buying a home with their son who's 36. That's a multi-generational household, because normally at 36, you're on your own, right? And so, and she's very, very happy with this arrangement. She said, "I have a deck," like she's in a house instead of an apartment unit. But anyways, so I would say from my calls and those people I'm speaking with, it's a good solid 30%, is what I feel. I haven't tracked it. But it's like almost nearly every single day in my conversations, there's someone who's got a multi-generational family going on. And but here's where it really stood out. The one gal happened to work for an insurance company, and she's in she's the grandma, and it's down to adults and grandkids. All right. And she said that just the policies that come across her desk, so many are multi-generational. I said, "What do you think? How many?" She said 30 to 40%. She said, "It'll look like 1929, then you see 1972, and then you see, 2004, whatever." And it's just boom, 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 as they have these policies that are revised due to the expanded household. And so what does this mean? What does all this mean? I think it's here to stay. I don't know, like what I've heard, there's 4 million, a shortage of 4 million homes that people are wanting to get into homes. But on the heels of that but can they afford it? So I go for walks every day in my neighborhood. I need a builder because another house is going up. He said, "Yep, hardly anyone can afford the 3 bedrooms. So I am building 2 bedrooms and they sell instantly." Now, do people want a 2 bedroom? No. and he sells them for under 300K. And so that's his niche. He found the sweet spot. He's gonna, the 2-bedroom homes, which I think for my son and his family, I know they would want a 3-bedroom, but this is where it is, take it or leave it, for what you can afford, so in any case, back to the point of, is this here to stay? I do feel it is here to stay. We'll see. We'll see. Because the country is in such tremendous flux right now, when you absorb, who knows, I don't know if it's been 10, 15, 20 million people en masse through migration, whether legal or illegal, that just does a trip on the ecosystem. I've run multiple businesses, and systems, you tend to, land where they end up being really stable. But when you inject outside elements in these, this injection where almost half of the population number is influx with, like a town of 6,000 with 3,000 people, you don't quickly absorb that. But I'm going to set that whole topic aside. I know it's really controversial right now, but more so is there's this shortage, but the question becomes, who can afford it? So pros and cons relative to strengthening the family economy. What does this mean for the family? To be honest, I think most people would agree, we live in really troubled times. I don't know it will ever get back to Mayberry. Was that the show Mayberry? I can't remember the whole name of it, but it's like it's gone. That era is gone, and we're in a very different era. And there is a profound lack of trust and a lack of feeling safe and secure. And so overall, I think for the health and well-being of the family, this coming together to overcome all the trauma that people have been experiencing with COVID, post-COVID, just incredible trauma. And a lot that I think many people aren't even really aware of, maybe at a subconscious level, how traumatizing that was, what it did to children. Just that's a whole nother, I could fill 2,000 podcasts, that topic. But the mental health of the nation and of our children, etc. So I do think a positive of the multi-generational, which is very common in other cultures where they're bunked in like this, is I think it's this sheltering in to, I don't mean like not going out in the sunshine and stuff. I mean just strengthening that family, the morals, the values, the ecosystem, and coming together, because people end up so disparate because of, it's kind of like a jar with rocks that had all settled in, and some are big, and then you get down to sand at the bottom, right? It's like all this turbulence going on in the culture, and then you see this family unit, it's just gotten shaken up like this because you have the inundation of social media and all its influences and how it's corrupted our kids. And you go, this isn't how we raise them. And so you have all these outside influences. And so I think by coming together under that one household, however scrunched or tight it may feel, probably in the big picture, I think that's a good thing, to help create a little more groundedness within the family, reconnecting through the traditions, etc., from when the kids were apart for 10 or 15 years, which was our case for 2 decades, and now we're here, right? And then the other thing would be strengthening the family economy, which is what I did when all my kids lived under a roof. Yeah, I taught them how to do business, and they worked with me for the past 20 years in our internet business. And so I think you want to economically resource together. I'll give you an example. So we have an Aetna insurance policy that gives us, between me and my husband, each of us, each quarter gets $135 in store credit from CVS. So we don't have that much to spend on that. So it's $270 worth. We let our son and daughter-in-law use that. Nothing out of our pocket, so they go in and they spend $270 or acquire via me and Brian's our Aetna policy. They've done it for 2 quarters this year. We're good. You know, we don't need a whole bunch more stuff. So anyways, there are good things from it. But I have to say, I don't think it's really quite what anybody necessarily really planned on proactively. But it has us thinking of, for example, do we do a family compound? Do we get like 3 different tiny homes? Do we grow a big garden together? You know, you just start to, it's like, I think this is here to stay. So this is kind of cramped. Should we alter things? So I just wanted to put that out there, and I would love to hear your thoughts, your input on this. I do believe it's here to stay, and I do believe that there are positives that can be had out of this. But just let me know of your interest, because this is a unique need to service these kind of households. It's unique, it's different, and I think it's going to grow. All right, so leave your comments, whether you're watching this on YouTube or on my blog, wherever it is, just please leave your comments. I'd love to hear. Thank you. Talk soon.